Welcome, everyone. So, in today's explainer, we're going to dive into one of the most intimidating words out there, cancer. But to really wrap our heads around this disease, we actually can't start in a hospital ward or a lab. We've got to start much smaller, like microscopic level smaller, right inside our very own bodies. We're going to unpack this villain's origin story, how modern medicine is fighting back, and maybe most importantly, how you can start building up your own defenses. Let's get into it. 36 trillion. That is a massive, almost unimaginable number, right? Well, that's the estimated number of cells in an average adult male body. And here's the truly wild part. These cells aren't just chilling out. Every single day, around 330 billion of them die off and are completely replaced by brand new ones. To put that into perspective, you are regenerating roughly 1% of your entire body every day. It's literally like replacing your entire arm every few months, cell by tiny cell.
You know that old philosophical saying, "You're not the same person you were this morning"? Well, biologically speaking, hit the nail on the head. You literally aren't. This constant, non-stop cellular regeneration is the absolute foundation of our biology. It's how we grow, and crucially, it is exactly how we heal from injuries.
Okay, moving right along to part 1, the constant cellular overhaul.
So it turns out, not all of your tissues regenerate at the same speed. It's actually a pretty wide spectrum. The lining of your intestines, that completely replaces itself in just 5 to 7 days. Your skin gets an entire overhaul every 4 weeks. In fact, fun little gross fact for you, shedding those 500 million skin cells a day makes up a huge amount of the dust floating around your home. Now, red blood cells stick around longer, about 120 days. But then, look at the very bottom of the list. Your brain and spinal cord show almost zero regenerative capacity. They stay mostly the same your whole life. It perfectly explains why a scraped knee heals up in no time, but a spinal injury is so incredibly difficult to recover from. Our fast-growing cells are an absolute miracle. But, as we're going to see, all that speed requires some serious traffic control.
Which brings us to Section 2, checkpoints in the cell cycle. To prevent total chaos during this massive cellular overhaul, our bodies run an intricate chemical dance known as the cell cycle. Cells actually spend the bulk of their time just growing and prepping. In the G1 phase, the cell bulks up. In the S phase, it synthesizes or copies its DNA. In G2, it grows a bit more. And finally, it hits the M phase, or mitosis, where the cell actually divides in two. But here is the most absolutely crucial detail, the checkpoints. Between these phases, the cell is heavily inspected. Is it growing right? Is the DNA damaged? Are the chromosomes perfectly lined up? It's like a highly strict factory assembly line.
Now, what happens if a cell fails one of these checkpoint inspections? Well, our body has these incredible built-in security guards, like the p53 tumor suppressor gene. If the security guard spots an unrepairable typo in the DNA, what we call a mutation, it triggers something called apoptosis. This is programmed cell death. The cell literally self-destructs for the greater good of the biological community, completely ensuring that those damaged instructions never get passed on.
Pretty amazing, right? All right, Section 3, mutations and rogue cells.
This is where the villain's origin story truly begins. See, a healthy cell plays strictly by the rules. It stops dividing when it's stressed out, and it self-destructs if its genes are damaged beyond repair. But a cancer cell, that cell has accumulated enough mutations to completely bypass those fail-safes. It totally ignores the security checkpoints. It basically forces the division machinery to put the pedal to the metal, dividing recklessly and continuously. And so that one rogue cell becomes 2, then 4, then 8, passing down its broken DNA every single time, until a mass, or tumor, is formed.
And honestly, here is where it becomes incredibly dangerous, because cancer cells don't always just stay put. They actually have the ability to detach, invade surrounding tissues, and hop right into your blood or lymph vessels. This spreading process is called metastasis. They survive the ride through your circulation and set up camp, establishing secondary tumors in critical places like the liver, lungs, or brain. To put that into perspective, academic oncology notes that metastasis is responsible for roughly 90% of all cancer-related deaths. It completely disrupts the normal functioning of the entire body.
Let's look at Section 4, the chemotherapy battleground.
Modern medicine, thankfully, does have some powerful weapons to fight back, like surgery and radiation. But if the cancer has spread, doctors will often rely on chemo. Now, what's absolutely key to understand here is exactly how chemo works. It doesn't just magically hunt down cancer cells like a heat-seeking missile. Instead, chemotherapy works by physically shredding DNA or disrupting the copying machinery of literally any cell that is caught in the middle of division. It brilliantly turns cancer's biggest strength, that aggressive rapid growth, into its fatal weakness.
But remember that tissue regeneration table we looked at a few minutes ago? Chemotherapy drugs circulate all over the body, hitting every single dividing cell. Suddenly, the harsh side effects of cancer treatment make total sense, right? The drugs are causing collateral damage to our healthy, fast-dividing cells. Hair loss happens because our hair follicle cells are constantly rapidly dividing. Nausea and diarrhea. That hits because your intestinal lining regenerates every 5 to 7 days. And patients often suffer from anemia or a weak immune system because the fast-dividing stem cells in the bone marrow, the very ones responsible for making our red and white blood cells, are also caught directly in the crossfire.
Finally, Section 5, your cancer defense shield.
So, the big question, why do these genetic mutations happen in the first place? It generally boils down to 3 main reasons. First up, inherited mutations. You might get a damaged gene passed down from a parent. But surprisingly, this only accounts for about 5 to 10% of all cases globally. Second is age. As we get older, genetic wear and tear naturally builds up. In fact, research shows the maximum incidence of cancer peaks in people aged 85 to 89. Now, we obviously can't change our genetics, and we definitely can't stop the clock. But that third reason? Lifestyle factors. This is a real game changer because this is where you hold an immense amount of power.
According to some deep analysis by the American Cancer Society, an incredibly uplifting 42% of global cancer cases are completely preventable. Almost half. Let's break down the main culprits here. Smoking causes 19% of cases. Obesity accounts for 7.8%. Physical inactivity, combined with a highly processed, chemical-laden diet, makes up about 5%. And UV radiation from the sun adds another 4.7% by penetrating the skin and directly frying your DNA.
The absolute biggest takeaway here is that you can actively reduce your risk, starting literally right now. Think of this as your science-backed defense checklist. First, ditch the smoking and severely limit your alcohol intake. Alcohol is actually linked to 7 different types of cancer, including liver and breast cancer. You're also going to want to maintain a healthy weight. Focus on fresh, natural foods and try to cut out those artificial additives and sneaky added sugars. Combine that with a solid exercise routine. Mix up your cardio, stretching, and strength training. Oh, and don't forget to protect those fast-dividing skin cells. Wear your sunscreen and try to stay out of the direct sun during peak hours. And finally, stay up to date on recommended vaccines. Certain viruses, like HPV and hepatitis B, are known carcinogens, and vaccines act like an invisible shield against them. At the end of the day, our bodies are just an absolute marvel, replacing billions of cells every single day in this delicate, complex, life-sustaining dance. And while medical science is continuously advancing its treatments on the chemotherapy battleground, your everyday, routine choices are genuinely the most effective security guards you have. Knowing that a massive 42% of cancers are preventable, I really want to leave you with this final thought. Will you start building your cellular defense shield today? Thanks so much for joining me to explore this incredibly important topic in today's Explainer. Catch you next time.